Welcome to episode 24 of the Just One End podcast. My name is Liz, also known as Elizabeth Zimmerman. I'm coming to you from Cochranville, Pennsylvania, where I live with my husband Greg and our two children, Eric and Tilda. You can find me on Instagram as Just One End podcast, and you can find me on Ravelry as Algebrina. So it has been a little while since I've podcasted. It has been even longer since I've sat down and recorded a podcast where I then edit and whatnot, because the last two episodes I did as YouTube Live episodes. And YouTube Live is an interesting experience, but I do kind of miss having the freedom of editing and, tacking in media like pictures and things. So back to the old format this time. So a lot has happened since I've last podcasted. I know I talked a lot about my trip to Scotland coming up. So that is now in the past. Now it is a fond memory instead of something to look forward to. I'm going to try not to bore you to death with a play-by-play account of what I did. But I will talk about it more towards the end. But let's dive right into some knitting content first, and I'll get into other stuff that's been going on, on top of the Scotland trip a little later. So, okay, and I'm going to be talking about Scotland kind of interspersed too, just because, what I've been working on and what I've purchased are going to tie into that. So, you may remember that before I left, I was running a knit-along with Paige the Framer, also known as Paige, the 3-color knit-along, 3-color cow. And I did pick a winner. I picked a winner before I left, but I didn't have time to record an episode and get the prize shipped out so that somebody, record an episode and give the winner time to contact me in order to get it shipped out before I left. So I did decide to hold off on announcing the winner, but I can announce it now. So the winner was Yarn Tripping, who is Jen. I'm really excited that she won too, because she was one who was able to participate from the beginning. She joined our virtual cast-on party and we got to check in with her. So congratulations, Jen. Get in contact with me and give me your address, and I will get the prize over to you, which, if you remember, is a frame from Paige with one of her Mrs. Brown's knitted fabric wrapped mats. So I'll get that sent over to you. And thank you to everyone who participated. It was a lot of fun. I really loved the virtual cast-on party, especially, and the virtual check-ins. So I think that any future knit-alongs, I'm definitely gonna pull that in as a factor, the whole virtually knitting together thing. So I have 3 finished objects to share. They're in varying degrees of doneness. The knitting is done on all of them. A couple of them don't have the ends woven in and aren't blocked yet. But this one does. So I'm going to start with this shawl, which is the Knitflix and Chill shawl. I don't think I can actually show it very well. This is a pattern by Annie Lupton. Also, let's see, put out by Boho Chic Fiber Company. This is also what the pattern looks like. There you can see a kind of a bigger shot of the finished project there. So I knit this out of a kit that I picked up from my friend Jamie when she was dyeing yarn under Beautiful Mess Yarn Works. She isn't dyeing yarn anymore, unfortunately, so you won't be able to get this yarn. But I really like it. It's got some really fun pink and blue and yellow and really just a whole kaleidoscope of colors in the more neutral color. And then the edge is a really fun blue, which definitely gets picked up in the neutral color too. So this was a project that I worked on. I started it before I left. I think I probably talked about it on the last podcast that I did, because I think it was in progress then. And I was on to, I think that I was about here. About that far into about there into the project when I picked it back up to take with me to on my trip, and it was kind of a lifesaver to have, because it's a very simple pattern. This section here is a little bit more texture, but then this section down into here is basically garter and ribbing. So they're very easy to pick up and just do and put down and not have to worry about having to finish a row and figuring out where you're at. So it was perfect for knitting on the plane, at the train station, in line at security, anywhere really. In the first couple of days of traveling, I was knitting on this. On the underground in London, that was a ton of fun to just pull it out there. So yeah, so I did a lot of my travel knitting on this. So I actually finished this in the first couple of days of my trip. I think I bound off the morning after everyone else got there to Scotland, which was I think 4 days into my trip. So it was a great project to take with me. Like I said, it was a great travel knitting project. I didn't block it till I got home, but it has been blocked now, and it is pretty substantial in size. It's kind of hard to show this close to the camera, but I'll try and get some finished object pictures and put those in. I'm terrible at taking finished object pictures though, so no promises on that. So that's my first finished object. The second one I have is another Scotland project. This one I took with me and planned to work on the whole time. And it was going to be the only project I brought with me. I kind of decided to bring the Netflix and chill one at the last minute, and I'm really glad that I did because this project took me less than a week to finish, and I was over there in the UK for about 2 weeks. So this is the 3-color cashmere cowl by Joji Locatelli. The yarn is from the Neighborhood Fiber Company. I picked it up as a kit. I think it was when I did my little personal yarn crawl in Baltimore when my group was singing the national anthem at the Orioles game last summer. So I've had it for about a year. It is done, except I haven't woven in ends. So the inside is full of all the different ends that still have to be woven in, and it has to be blocked. But otherwise, it's done. It really was very fast. I mean, I was on vacation, so it's hard to gauge how fast it would be if I hadn't been. But I knit on it really every chance I got. And it was really great. It was nice to have the different pattern and color changes. It kept me interested without being too boring. And yeah, the ending kind of snuck up on me. I was like, oh, I'm done way earlier than I expected to be. So that is the 3-color cashmere cowl. And sorry, I don't know the colorways because it came in a kit. They're probably on the packaging. So if I find that and put that in the information below, I'll try to do that. That's finished object number 2. And then my third finished object is one that I just finished tonight. Also a very, very fast knit. So this, and again, the ends aren't woven in and it's not blocked, but this is called the Winter Spark shawl. It's an asymmetric triangle shawl, which I've talked about as one of my favorite styles. It has a big old tassel there at the bottom. Tassels are my thing lately. It really just those last 2 projects is the only tassels I've ever done. But on the last 2 shawls, there's the tassels. This is a shop sample that I knit up for Paige. So if you want to see it in person, you can go down to Paige's shop pretty soon, and she'll have this. It is knit on, with Malabrigo Rios. The limey green one is called Apple Green. The purpley pink one is called Hollyhock. And then the dark one, which is actually kind of blue more than black, is called Pearl 10. I don't know where the name Pearl 10 comes from, but it's like a really dark navy. So it was a really easy shawl, easy pattern to do. And because it's in a worsted weight yarn, I've never done a shawl in worsted weight before. It grows really fast. So it was a super fast project to get through. Like I said, I think I started it 5 days ago. So, and bound off today. So it was really fast. Now she kind of gives guidelines as you're knitting the shawl as to how many rows to do, but it's more suggestions. She said that with like the first color, she knit till a certain percentage so that she'd have enough to do the next section. And she said how many rows she did. And I did follow the rows that she did in the pattern. I should say, the designer is Lisa. I think it's Hannah's, based on the pronunciation guides I found online. Lisa Hannes, Malia Designs. I've knit several of her shawls. But so the rows, I followed what she did, except when I got to this section here, I did not have enough of the dark color to do the same number of repeats that she did. She did another, I think, 2 stripes of each color. So my gauge is probably off. Honestly, when it comes to a shawl, I don't check gauge. And I wanted to make sure I had enough for the tassel at the end. I think my tassel is probably a bit bigger than it needs to be. It could probably be slimmed down a bit, but but I don't think I had enough to go extra rows anyway. So, but that's this one. So Winter Spark, Malabrigo Rios. Yeah, definitely a quick, fun, easy knit. And I think I will probably knit one for myself. Like I said, it's a shop sample, so I'll be sending this one off. But I think that a worsted weight shawl is a great idea. And then I don't really have any whips. Since I cast that off today, I've got a couple that are languishing that I should probably pick up, but I don't really have anything that has any progress to share, at least knitting wise. Really, the only thing I have to share any progress on is my stitching. The Clouds Factory Legendary Creatures Stitch Along, I think that's what it's called, for 2018. I worked on that a lot when I was traveling also. And I actually caught up I caught up in that I finished through the June clue, or June section of the pattern. I have July, and I haven't started working on it yet, but that's next. But you can see I've got this whole top row done now. I think this is the last one I was working on when I shared it. So A, B, C, D, and E are all recently finished. So it's some of these are interesting, like pronunciations. I'm not really sure what they are. I read my little blurb about them, but so I've got Anku for A, B is Bigfoot, C is Curupira, I believe, D is Duende, and E is Elemental. So I don't really know a lot about them. But those are all done now. So next, I think I've got J, K, and O. And I know J is a jackalope. So we'll see what the other ones are. So that's what I'm working on now. Almost caught up. I'm kind of expecting that I'll probably catch up through July too, just because, like I said, I don't have a lot of knitting whips right now. So this is really pulling my attention. Stitching has been a lot of fun to be working on. So that's all I have to share for projects. So like I said, I'm going to try not to bore you to tears with recapping everything about my trip, but I am going to talk about it. So as you may know, if you've watched before, last time I was talking about a trip that was coming up. At the end of June, I was joining a knit group, a knitting tour, to head over to Scotland. I decided to head over a couple of days early on my own and just explore London for a couple of days, just because I've never been, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to, explore it and to have an adventure. So I did. So the trip is booked through Rowan Tree Travels, which is this great company. It's run by Heather, and I can't remember her last name right now, but Heather, she's really awesome. She was our tour guide. My friends who own Flying Fibers organized the trip with Heather. They worked together to put together this trip. And then, Flying Fibers advertised it and opened it up to their clientele and people they knew to sign up. So it was really, a lot of the people on the trip were people who are customers at Flying Fibers. A few of them I knew, most of them I didn't. But it was just a really fun group of mostly ladies and one gentleman who was there with his wife. So I went over a couple of days early. I landed in London on a Saturday morning. I did a terrible job of trying to adjust my jet lag. I thought that I was going to do great. I stayed up all day on Saturday. Once I got into London and where I needed to stay, my Airbnb and all of that got settled, I had gotten tickets for a hop-on, hop-off bus tour. So I picked up the bus. I spent the day out. I was exploring. And I had dinner at Piccadilly Circus. And then I stayed up till a reasonable time, like 11 o'clock, and then I went to bed. And then I slept until 1 o'clock the next afternoon. So I kind of overslept my jet lag and went the wrong direction. So I had another fun day in London, just exploring again the bus tour. And I stayed up until about 5 a.m. So not really the best way to try and adjust for jet lag, but oh well, it worked out in the end because the next day I did wake up at a reasonable hour. I think I got up at like 9 because I wanted to hit the Tower of London before I grabbed my train up to Glasgow. So I did. I went to the Tower of London. The Yeoman, often also known as Beefeaters. The tours that they do are great. They're really informative. Our guy was hilarious. Like he had some really funny jokes. And so I joined one of those tours and walked around for a bit. I didn't get a chance to see the crown jewels because the line was incredibly long. And since I overslept my Sunday day so much and had to push this until Monday morning before I caught the train, my time to explore was a lot more limited. So I actually even hopped out of the tour a little bit early and missed my chance to see the crown jewels, but honestly, it wasn't hugely important to me, so so I survived. So after that, I caught the train. I caught the train and took it up to Glasgow, where I got to meet my friends for dinner. Kirsty of Grenade Creations, I think I said that right, podcast, and Aileen, who is a Little Bush Baby on Instagram. We met up at the train station, and then they very fortunately walked me over to the hostel where I was staying because I get lost if I turn. Like, I never know where I am geographically. So they were able to walk me around. So we got me checked into the hostel, and then we went and grabbed dinner and a drink at like a real local pub, which was a lot of fun. At some point, a couple of guys came in, probably from a wedding or something, wearing kilts, which was the first kilts I got to see. So, so I had a lot of fun hanging out with them. They gave me gifts too, which I'm going to show. I'm going to try and intersperse my acquisitions with recounting my trip so that you don't have to just sit through a whole long thing of what I bought. And I'm not going to share everything I bought too. A lot of places I just got pins or, something souvenir-y, which you don't need to see. So, so when I got there, Kirsty was very sweet and handed me a gift. She gave me 2 skeins of her yarn, which she used to sell under Little Bee Accessories. That was the old name of her Etsy shop. So there's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. This one, I don't think I have a colorway on it, but it's like a really bright orangey color. Not quite as bright as it's showing on the screen, but still pretty bright. And then this one is really pretty. It's got a beautiful halo to it. It's 70% superwash BFL, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. And this one's called Moonlight, so this one does have a name. So she gave me those, which was so sweet, and a project bag with the bees on it, which is super adorable. And Aileen also gave me a little stitch marker of the little the little Highland cow with the Scottish flag, or shield, I guess it would be here. Oh no, it's actually part of its fleece. It's a Scottish fleece. So I can use that as a stitch marker. Oh, and then Kirsty also gave me this little keychain, I guess it would be, which was made by Michelle, who is, I can't remember your handle right now, Michelle. I'll put it below. So, so she made this, and Kirsty gave that to me. And then Aileen also brought from the Rhodes retreat that a lot of folks did in the IVKN group, a button for the IVKN clan, which is the International Virtual Knit Nights, which I join sometimes. So that was very sweet of them that they gave those to me while we had dinner and a drink. And I will say that one of my favorite things about traveling in the UK was the availability of cider versus beer. Because I'm not a beer person, and a lot of places either had cider on tap or they had a really nice selection of bottled ciders. And so Kirsty introduced me to one of my favorites, which is Old Moot, passion fruit and apple. It's delicious. And I'm trying to figure out how I can get it over here. We do have cider at the liquor store that I can find, but not necessarily all the varieties I got to try. So that was my last night on my own. So I stayed the night in the hostel, and then I was supposed to meet the group over at the Glasgow airport the next morning, very early in the morning. I think I was supposed to meet him at like 7. And then fortunately, I woke up at 6 a.m. to an email from Heather saying, well, fortunately for me, not fortunately for everyone else, their flight had been delayed, significantly delayed. I think it was delayed by 7 hours in the end, or 5 or 7 hours in the end. So I woke up to an email from Heather saying that because their flight was delayed, I would meet them at the airport at noon, which sounded like a much better time to have to get up and get myself to the airport, because I think it took me like half an hour to get to the airport from where I was anyway. So I did go to the airport. There was another person traveling on her own before and after also, Jess. So we were able to hang out with Heather while we waited for everyone. Even when they got there delayed, it still took them forever to get through customs or baggage claim or something. So we were waiting there for quite a while. But everyone did finally arrive. The whole big group came out and we started our big adventure. We had a chartered bus for ourselves. It was like a 36-seater, so it was a pretty substantial size bus. And that was our main transportation. And we drove, well, we were supposed to do the mill at New Lanark first, but because they were delayed, that got struck from the itinerary just because they didn't get there in time. We were supposed to do that in the morning into lunchtime, and by the time they got there, it was already afternoon. So unfortunately, that part of the trip didn't happen, but we did drive over to Edinburgh. So we had a lunch there. That was our first like gathering of the group, and we got to relax and chat together. I think I mentioned it was about 20 people, so a pretty good sized group, and a few of them I knew, but not very many. So it was nice to get to chat and get to know everyone. And then we checked into our hotel, which was the Apex in Edinburgh, and we stayed there for 2 nights. While we were in Edinburgh, we did a museum. I can't remember here. I gotta look at my itinerary to remind myself what we did, because it was a long trip, and really the days just kind of get jumbled up, especially 2 weeks out now. We went to the National Museum of Scotland, and we had a tour guide who was able to show us fiber-specific things. So we just went around and kind of jumped from exhibit to exhibit to focus on the ones that talked about fiber and knitting and things like that, which was really interesting. We really could have spent all day there. It was a fascinating museum. We just had a lot more limited time. And then we had tea at the Tower restaurant, I think it was, which is located there in the museum, which was very nice. And then we did a yarn crawl. So in Edinburgh, there were 2 yarn shops that were visited. And then we also stopped at Isolde Teague's studio. So we went to, I think we did Isolde first. which was a lot of fun. It was really cool to, hang out with her a bit and check out her space. Then we split up because the two shops we went to were very, very small. And when I say very, very small, I mean one of them was a literal hole in the wall. It was Ginger Twist Studios. Adorable. I cannot believe what she does with this space. It is so, so, so tiny. But really just the cutest little yarn shop ever. So we went to Ginger Twist Studios. Oh, you know what? I haven't been showing my acquisitions with it. At Isolde's, I did get one pack of yarn here, which is Julie Aslin. It's the Austin color options. They're superwash merino and silk. So I picked that up. I think I picked something up. Oh, so that was Isolde's. I also picked up a pattern for a really cute little sweater that hopefully I'll get my button gear and make for Tilda. So that's what I got there. And then we went over to Ginger Twist Studios, and I picked up 2 skeins of her hand-dyed yarn, 2 of the same colorway, which is the, what's it called? Good Morning Green. And it's on her Sheepish sock, which is 80% superwash BFL and 20% nylon. And it's really pretty, very blue and green and just kind of, I don't know, it reminded me of water, I think. So that's what I picked up at Ginger Twist. And then the last stop was Kathy's Knits, I think, which I decided not to go to because I felt like I'd already bought enough yarn, and the options were either go to that yarn store and walk back to the hotel, or skip it and ride the bus back to the hotel. So I opted for the bus because it was a really long walk. So that's what we did. So that was the Edinburgh Yarn Crawl section of the day, and that was our last night there in Edinburgh. And my Scottish friends are yelling at me because they told me how to pronounce it, but I feel really weird saying Edinburgh, like they told me to. So, and then we headed out of Edinburgh and we went to, where did we go? Oh, we headed toward Granton-on-Spey. So we were heading up north. And if I can, I'll try and put in a little map. We stopped at a place where they did Heather Gems. And if you've never heard of it, Heather Gems is where they take the, I don't know what you'd call it. It's the heather after it's already bloomed. It's basically sticks. Sticks from the heather. And they dye it and they compress it. And then they carve it and they lacquer it. And they basically make jewelry out of it. I did get something there and I can't find it right now. I'll try and take a picture. Most of it was jewelry. I don't wear any jewelry because I have a metal allergy. Basically, I can't wear practically anything. But we did find some charms which you can use as progress keepers or stitch markers. So I did end up picking that up while we were there. And then we headed up to the Knockandoo woolen mill, which was fascinating. Hello. Yes, cat butt. So the Knockandoo woolen mill is a fascinating place. I'm not going to talk too much about. I have a cat tail in my face. I'm not going to. All right, you guys sit if you're going to come up here. I'm not going to talk too much about what it is because I'll probably get it wrong, but it's basically a historic wool mill that they've kind of restored machinery or brought in, I don't know. They have a lot of really cool machinery there that they use to process wool. And one of them was a really cool spinning machine. So they basically process all of the wool and they get it down to what they call pencil roving, which is like roving except it's really, really thin, so it's you don't draft it at that point. It's basically to what it would be, and then you spin it. And this machine, I'll try and put in some video of it, but basically that pencil roving is wrapped onto tubes, and then they're attached to cones, And this machine pulls out the pencil roving, twists it, and then pushes back in order to wrap that onto the cones. And it does that over and over. It's fascinating.
That is so cool. Right off the top, just like a support handle.
Unless he has to pre-screen it each time, but ours he's already had people on them and
Especially now that I've done more spinning and I understand the mechanics of, how the spinning process works. It's a really cool machine. But so yeah, we just checked out the cottages and the mills and things that they had. They're just, showing what it looked like. I think they said it had been around for, I want to say a couple hundred years. Like I said, I'm going to get all of it wrong if I try and say anything about it. But I did pick up some roving. Unfortunately, they didn't sell pencil roving. I was really hoping they would sell the pencil roving part of it. Just because it'd be kind of fun to just spin and not have to draft. But unfortunately, no. So I did get some roving. And then I got some of that they make there also. So this is terracotta. It's a DK weight. It is undyed dollar wool, it says. Undyed, though? That seems kind of crazy. Anyway, it says undyed. And then in parentheses, it says toast. So I picked this up. Yeah, over 230 years in the Spey Valley. So this is the yarn I grabbed. And then I also got a pattern for a teapot cozy to use with the yarn. I tried when I was buying yarn on this trip to have a purpose for it. I don't always do it that way, and I didn't do it that way the first day when I bought yarn at Isolde and Ginger Twist. Those were kind of just, I wanted yarn and didn't know what I would make with them. But after that, I was much better about only buying yarn for specific projects. So, so I did get better. They also showed us some of their more modern machinery that they have there at the mill, because they are producing things. And they showed us their loom, and I can't think of what it's called right now. Rapier loom, I think. So it instead of having a shuttle that goes across and takes the ear weft, I think it is, to make your fabric, it actually has two pinching arms where one pushes the thread out and then the other one meets it and grabs it. And so it does this over and over, which is just really fascinating. So I took some video of that and I took it in slow motion. So hopefully you can actually see how it works. But I think it said it passed, what was it, like 10 times a second or something like that. It's incredibly fast, and it just grows in front of your eyes. It's amazing. So it was really fascinating. And while we were there, they really took us kind of behind the scenes too. There were lots of places where they're like, okay, stop here, to view in general. But then our tour guide would kind of take us beyond that section, and we get to talk to the people who were working, which was really cool. And then after that, we also went to the Cardhu Distillery and took a tour there of the whiskey distillery, which was really fascinating, especially when she started talking about the flavors and the flavors that you can get of different whiskeys. And they're all from the same ingredients. It's just the process that can get you, like a smoky one or like a medicinal tasting one, which is apparently something that you want. I don't know. Or like a chocolatey one or something floral. It's all in the process. The ingredients are all the same. So I don't know. It was really, really interesting. So, so we had our distillery tour. And then the next day we headed up to where we were going to stay on the Isle of Skye. And along the way, we stopped at the Black Isle Brewery. I can't say that word. The Black Isle Brewery, which is an organic brewery. They actually feed their, I can't think of what the word is. The stuff that's left over from the processing of the beer, they feed that to their livestock, including sheep. I think they said that they used to have finished objects from their sheep that they raised, that they sold, but they didn't have anything when we went. But that was a lot of fun, checking out the brewery and learning that whole process. And then we stopped at the Skye Baking Company on our way, and we did a Dorset button workshop. I don't have my Dorset buttons with me either, so I'll try and put a picture in. But we did a workshop with TJ Frog, who is Tanya. She actually has an audio podcast that you should check out. So she taught us how to, the history of Dorset buttons and how to make them and how different applications for them. One great idea that she had was that if you have a shawl and you have leftover yarn, you can make a button using the leftover yarn, because it's basically like a wrapped ring and then kind of like weaving inside. You can make a matching button into like a brooch for your yarn if you need to, like a shawl pin, something like that, which I thought was a really great idea. And then she had all sorts of examples of ways that you can use the buttons, and she makes them all the time. She actually makes really tiny ones into earrings that she sells, which a bunch of ladies picked up while we were there. Unfortunately, the whole can't wear jewelry thing kind of put a damper on that for me, but they were really very incredible. Especially knowing, we made a couple of buttons in our workshop, and knowing the work that goes into that just blows me away. And she had some really gorgeous examples with beads and things. Just really, really pretty. So we did that workshop and had some tea and scones there. Oh, and the scones were so good. And then we headed up to our hotel at the Isle of Skye and had a fantastic dinner. Like, so good. The hotel we stayed at was very nice. I think it was called the Cullens Hotel. There's a lot of U's and I's in there. But it was a really, really pretty hotel. And they had very nice staff there that we got to interact with. The next day we did a visit to a croft. We met Yasmin, who was amazing. Like, she's just the most bubbly, happy person. Alexandra, I think, also works at the croft, and she showed us around and told us all about the sheep that live there and what they do there at the croft. And then we got to go down to their house and see a spinning demonstration. And I got to try spinning on a wheel, which I've never done before. So I do have some video, but I got to try it out. It does make me want to eventually make that leap to to the wheel. I don't think I'm quite ready yet for the time and finance commitment to it, but I'm definitely intrigued by it. So that was a lot of fun. And she's just a great storyteller. Like I said, a very, very happy person. Like, she just exuded kindness and goodness. Like, she is just a wonderful, wonderful person. So that was really cool to visit her croft. Oh, I forgot to mention, I think the night before, Heather had arranged a trunk show with, I gotta find her stuff to remember, with Black Isle Yarns. And I can't remember the name of the girl who runs it right now, and I will try and find the card that I'm sure I have in here with her name. But I did pick up some of her yarn here. This is Gotland fiber, which is very nice. It's a little bit rustic, but very soft. So that is a set that I picked up along with a pattern, which I believe she said her sister designed, or her friend. The Shive Light cowl. And I don't know if you'll be able to see that at all. But it's a color work cowl that's perfect for the yarn that I picked up. See, I stuck with my rule there. You know what? I gotta jump back. There's something I didn't talk about. I don't think I saw it on the itinerary, so that's probably why. But when we were in Edinburgh the first morning, we also went to Dovecot Studios, which is a weaving studio. It's located in what used to be a public pool and bathhouse that kind of, I think part of it had a fire and then it was shut down due to funding, and it fell into disrepair. And then this studio, probably a parent company. There's probably a story that I'm forgetting. Anyway, it got fixed up and renovated, and now it's a weaving studio. And it's gorgeous. It was very, very pretty. Like the space that these weavers are working in was just amazing. Like just wide open space and natural light, and it was really pretty. And in their shop, they were also selling some ceramics, and I picked up this ceramic pin, which I would probably use as a shawl pin. But if you're interested in looking at it, Dovecot Studios, they do commission tapestries, and they've done some for like major headquarters like Coca-Cola and I think Coca-Cola, maybe it was PepsiCo. Anyways, they've done some major commission works. So it's a really interesting place, worth checking out. And then the next day we did a felting workshop with Anne Salter of Dragonfly Studio. We took fiber and we felted it into like little logs, which of course I didn't bring with me again. I'll take pictures and put it in. But you felted basically like a big cigar, and then cut that into rounds once it had dried, and we made pins. So the morning we spent felting our little cigars, and then we went to lunch and let them dry. And we had, the food was amazing on this trip, so I'm going to talk about it a lot. But we went to the Three Chimneys Inn. It was closed down specially for us, and we had a Michelin star lunch, and we did a sampler menu. And I'll put in the pictures that I took. It was beautiful, and it was delicious. It was so good. It was all seafood, just, different fishes and shellfish and things like that, and it was amazing. And then after lunch, we went to Dunvegan Castle, which I think I have some video to put in. I did pick up a souvenir from there. In the gift shop, they had a cross stitch that was hanging on the wall that they were also selling. So, so I picked up that cross stitch kit. I don't really know what it is exactly. It's called the Red Man. I don't know that it necessarily has anything to do with the castle, but it's a good remembrance of, of my trip. So. Then we headed out of Skye, and we stopped at Elin Dunan Castle. So it was our second castle there that we stopped at. Apparently it's one of the most iconic images because it's used a lot for, it's used as an external shot for a lot of movies and things like that. It was really interesting to visit because it's still, I think it's the seat of a clan. And although the part where, actually, I think both castles are still, they're privately owned, but a section of them are open to the public. And so the second castle is really interesting because there were, family pictures there, current family pictures. So instead of just, the really old pictures of people who used to inhabit the castle, there were pictures of weddings in the past, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and kids and things like that, of the family who actually owned the castle, which was really cool, bringing like the old historic into the modern. Really tying together that whole sense of how old and established these families and things are. And I should say, when we were staying in Skye, we were actually staying in a town called Portree, which is a really cute little town. And one of the evenings we just spent walking around and checking out the shops. And one thing I did pick up, which I'll show you, was a print at a framing shop that that we stopped in at. That also sold yarn and hand knit stuff. But if you know anything about Scotland, the Highland cow is a fairly iconic image and creature. It's all over. There was a little shop that we stopped at on the way up to the Highlands called the Hairy Coo, which was a Highland cow. So I picked up this print here, which is just kind of a whimsical representation of the cow. I thought it would be a fun little memory. It's by Matilda Kaneka, I think. She had some really cool little whimsical prints that I liked. So I may look at her stuff some more, but I thought that would be a fun thing to hang on my wall as a great memory of my trip. Oh, and then we went to the Newtonmore Highland Folk Museum, and this was fascinating. So it's an outdoor museum. They have a cat. They have a recreation of a village at a certain point in time. And apparently that set has been used to shoot a couple of scenes from Outlander. I've never seen Outlander. Sorry. But but apparently that's what it had been used for. But when we got there, we actually got an amazing behind the scenes look at their collection, especially related to fiber. So we walked into one of their administrative buildings and we were led into their storage area with a guide. And we saw all of these spinning wheels and looms and things that they have just in their collection in storage. And then they also brought out some of their knitted items. And they had them laid out for us, and they gave us gloves and actually let us handle them, which was really, really cool. And then we walked around, the rest of the museum, checked it all out. Got to check out the little Outlander village. Not really Outlander village, just the village where they did do some filming for Outlander. And then the next day, we headed over to St. Andrews. We did see the old course, for those of you who know anything about golf, which I don't. And we went to, I think it was St. Mary's College, which is part of St. Andrews University. And we did a knitting workshop with Carrie Westerman. So Carrie was really cool to meet, really interesting to talk to, hear her story. She has a book that she put out recently. And we did a workshop about knitting, I think it was called Knitting Your Landscape. It was about how to take experiences and put it into a knitwear design. It was really fun, a fun way to end the trip, kind of reminiscing about, our experiences and figuring out what memories we liked to put into our knitting. And then we checked into our last hotel there in St. Andrews, and we left bright and early the next morning to get everyone to the Edinburgh airport for their flight home. I had a fun day of I had it all figured out, trying to make sure I got all of my connections, because I went with the group to the airport in Edinburgh, and then I had to catch the bus from the airport to the train station in order to catch my train from there down to London. And then I had to catch another train from King's Cross, where I landed, to get over to the Gatwick airport, where I caught my flight home. And then I got to continue traveling because I actually flew into JFK, which is also where I flew out of, and I had to catch an Amtrak train from there down to Wilmington, Delaware, where my husband and two very, very sleepy children picked me up right around midnight. So I literally traveled more than 24 hours, because we left the hotel in St. Andrews at, I think it was 5 a.m. And I got home, well, I got to my last train station stop at midnight local time, which is 5 a.m. UK time. so I traveled for 24 hours. I did stay up. I stayed up on the plane and watched movies and made sure I didn't fall asleep. I did doze a little bit on the last train, I think, but not too terribly. So when I got home, I definitely got a good night's sleep and enjoyed the day off that I deliberately took to recover. Although I still feel like it took me a little while to recover since I wasn't knitting or posting on Instagram or anything for probably about a week after that. But it was a really, really amazing experience. I'm so glad that I went. I don't think it's something I'll be able to do regularly, unfortunately, between, the cost of the trip and the time off that I had to take for work, because they're not a real big fan of giving you 2 weeks off at a time. Um, and then, my fantastic, fantastic husband taking over, single parenthood for the kids for 2 weeks. Yeah, probably not going to happen again anytime soon. However, if you are looking for a knitting trip, especially a once in a lifetime experience, Rowan Tree Travels, they organize I think at least 3 tours a year that are, just open. You can sign up on their website. They do a woolen whiskey tour, which I know stops at the Perth Yarn Festival, which is coming up in September. And then I think a couple of others. So definitely worth the trip. I think it was really an amazing experience, and I am looking back on it fondly and kind of sad that it's in my past now instead of something to look forward to in my future. But that's going to be it for me today. I'm really pretty tired because I'm recording this very late at night. Thank you for joining me. Sorry if this was really long and boring. But, maybe some people are interested in everything that I did on my trip. So I will see you next time. Bye.